The What to Read Next podcast helps you build a TBR of future favorite books. In each episode, Lori and Maine interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show's for you. Hi, Sophie. Welcome to What to Read Next podcast.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for having me.
So happy to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, of course. So my name's Sophie Irwin. I am a historical novelist, and I've just published my first book, A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. And I'm from London, England. Well, I live in London, England. I'm from Dorset, England. And yeah, and it's been a really exciting month. So it's great to be sort of connecting to readers and podcasters and book people in general. I've been very, very blessed.
I am so excited to chat with you. So let's chat about this is your debut novel. So
Yeah.
when did you start writing, and what was your journey to publication?
Oh, okay. Buckle in. Right. So I started writing, I guess, a tiny bit in 2019. 2019 was when I had the idea for the book. So I've always wanted to be a writer. That's always been sort of like a childhood dream of mine. When I was a little, I wrote a lot creatively, all sorts of different stuff. Not very good, but I wrote. And then I got to sort of my teenage years and I suddenly got really embarrassed by it all. And it's something about the idea of being, because you're not very good to begin with at writing. As with anything, you do not start off good. And suddenly when I was sort of like 16, 17, I suddenly was very mortified by the process and the fact that I thought it was kind of embarrassing to be caught trying at something creative. So I didn't stop completely, and I never wrote again until 2019, and I had the idea for this book. And I started writing it very slowly, very quietly, completely secretly. Only my friend Fran knew actually that I was doing it to begin with, and she was always like so supportive, and actually was the one who sort of got me into writing. So we used to write on Sundays together. But it wasn't until 2020 and then lockdown, and I had this sort of extra 2 hours each day where I normally be commuting, that I could really devote some time to it. And so I wrote it mostly over 2020 and the beginning of 2021. And various stages. The first draft was terrible. Second draft was marginally better. Third draft, we got somewhere. So it kind of weirdly feels a combination of very slow, because I did spend so long with that world and those characters by myself for ages before I got any help. But then it also happened really fast, because I submitted my first 3 chapters to an agent in sort of January 2021. I was signed by February, and we had a deal by June. So suddenly it went very rapidly through the process, which was also really exciting. What an exciting time.
Gosh, that's an exciting time. And that's a great project to have, during lockdown,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I feel really lucky because I know that lots of authors found writing during lockdown very difficult. For various reasons. I think if you were like a parent, obviously so hard, or even if you wrote more serious books, I think if you had to sort of tackle a serious subject at a serious time, it was very difficult. Whereas I got to spend 2 hours a day being and then she swatted him with her fan and everyone was shocked. Yeah. So I actually found it such a brilliant escape writing it, so, which I know is very lucky.
So what was your research for writing historical? What was that research process? Because I know that's sometimes it's daunting and it can be a rabbit hole that you just jump into.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, the benefit is that because you have that rabbit hole mentality, it's really fun, because there's so many things you could go chase down. And part of this joy of it is, especially now that I'm sort of doing it full time, is having that time to chase down random bits of trivia and random books or random diaries that are never going to make it in the book, but sort of help, I think, create sort of this texture and this backdrop that you can build off of. So the trick is not spending too much time on it. So I did a huge amount of research for book one, and a lot of it was just reading. So I read a lot of textbooks, a lot of history books, a lot of memoirs, letters, diaries, anything I could get my hands on. I poured over old maps. I walked around London with a picture of an old map on my phone and trying to see what had changed, what hadn't changed, and work out where my characters would be walking, how long it would take them to walk everywhere. But truthfully, it was a hugely ongoing process, because part of it was I getting this groundwork in so that I could actually write in the period. But then also, as I was writing, and especially as I was editing, I was really lucky to have lots of very clever women working with me who were very historically minded and were like, check this, check this, check this, check this, which was brilliant, because there's some things it's not that you haven't gone out to find out the answer, it's that you didn't even know to ask the question. So it's really useful having that kind of external people. So I carried on researching the whole way through editing, the whole way through copy editing, everything, because there's always something you don't know, and also that you don't know that you don't know, which is when it gets a bit complicated.
Oh my gosh. I feel like that's what it would be fun to just go down the rabbit hole. Like, I don't know. There were days that I'm like, I spend so much time on Wikipedia just going down, like checking more, consuming more information. So I feel like that's a good kind of like fun. Be like, is this word in the time period? What did they wear? Like, how did it go to the hero? You know?
Exactly. And especially because once there's so much stuff, you're like, okay, what's the layout of the house? How are they walking up steps to get into the houses? What's the same, what's different, what assumptions are you making that you assume life is going to be the same, then that it's actually completely wrong? So it can be, it's a big world of research out there. You could go on for, well, many people do dedicate their whole lives to it.
Yeah. All right, so let's chat about A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. What is the edge?
Okay, so it's a historical rom-com set in 1818 in Regency, England, and it follows Kitty Talbot, who is the eldest of 5 sisters and has just inherited a huge amount of family debt. And the only way to save her sisters from certain ruin is to head off to London to try and find herself a rich husband. So Kitty's a fortune hunter with a heart of gold, is how I sometimes describe her. She's got all the best of intentions. She's motivated by love for her family, but she is also determined and ruthless, and no one's going to get in her way, not even the very dashing Lord Radcliffe. So that's my short pitch.
I love this. And so what allowed you to start writing historical rom-com, like historical fiction, as opposed to any other genre?
Well, it's just my favorite genre. So it was always going to be historical fiction, was always going to be Regency specifically, because those are the books I go to escape. So them, I can't tell you how much I love them. They're just the best escapism possible. I think it's something to do with the time being this like gorgeously decadent, beautiful, ritualistic, extraordinary world that feels kind of similar to now, but also very, very different, almost like a fantasy world in a way, which I think it makes it just the most extraordinary escape possible, especially if you're going through something stressful, i.e. everything that's going on for the last couple of years. So for me, that was, I never sat down and was like, what genre shall I write in? It was like, this idea came, it was always going to be this. So that's really what did it. It was just loving the genre. And the idea came sort of to have Kitty as a fortune hunter because of one day when I was thinking about the books that I had been reading, all historical rom-coms, and thinking about what it would be like to read a rom-com where it was the heroine and not the villain that was the fortune hunter, which is a flip of the trope. And whether you could do it and have her be quite determined, a bit ruthless, but still be lovable and still want to root for her, which I hope you do. Yes. In the book.
Yes, we do. I think it's a really good gender flip because we see all this, like, especially in Victorian, we see all these like dukes and lords going back to the Americas to look for heiresses, because they're like, they're cash strapped. And so it's good to see like a female, protagonist is like, I need money, I love that trope. Like the way they can actually, marry rich,
exactly. And game the system.
And find love,
Yeah, find love along the way, because it is a rom-com. So, unfortunately, love gets in the way.
Yeah. Awesome. So what kind of books do you tend to read? And then you mentioned a little bit about historical rom-coms and stuff like that. Are there genres you tend to read? And then do you have any books to recommend?
Always. This is my favorite question, a favorite discussion to have with anybody. So I love historical romance. So my big recommendation there, who is an author called Georgette Heyer, who is sort of like Austen's granddaughter in spirit, is kind of how I pitch her. And she's tragically overlooked, so isn't nearly enough famous, given that she sort of created the whole genre of Regency romance. So all of the tropes we are very used to now, Georgian Hare basically created them, in my opinion. And so she's fantastic, and she's got like 30 Regency romances, all beautifully elegant, beautifully written. You know, there's just this sort of like elegance of style, which is so Austen-like. I think she's brilliant. So start with Georgia Hare if you like this genre at all. She's brilliant. Arabella is a really good entry point for anyone sort of unsure. Yeah, Georgia Hare is my big, historical romance recommendation. Otherwise, I read quite widely, but I have a strong preference for a happy ending. So, and escapism in general. So I end up reading a lot of rom-coms, and my favorites are sort of the authors who are able to write rom-coms with just these like really strong plots, very funny, everything's very sort of like very clever. So, and I think that, and when you can tell the author themselves really loves the genre, I love that. I think it's quite powerful. So my key recommendations there are people like Emily Henry, fabulous author. Casey, and I'm just going to forget her last name now, who wrote Red, White and Royal Blue. I think she's phenomenal. Quinton, yeah. Taylor Jenkins Reid is not strictly a rom-com writer, though she has written a lot of rom-coms. She's just best in class about everything, whatever genre she writes. I think she's phenomenal. Who else? I love Kevin Kwan, Jasmine Gilroy, Lindsay Kelk. Just these like very smartly written rom-coms. Because I think as a genre also, sorry, this is a tangent, so you may cut it if you would like, but there's so much as a genre. Rom-com is so broad, like there's so many different like avenues you could go down, like Kevin Kwan, who does the big cast of characters and this sort of like comedy of manners, big family plots, which is fantastic. Or you can go down the sort of Emily Henry, very very concept driven. This is the plot, this is the, you know, and it's so I think they're phenomenal. I think they're not given enough credit.
It's a really great genre to dive into, and just a little bit of everything. You know, that's the beauty of it. It's like you do whatever you're feeling like it. There's a trope, there's a person, there's a style, there's something beside, you know. And so, and it's a good escape. Like the good news is that there's going to be happily ever after. So
you can relax.
You can relax.
exactly. And then it's almost like the writer weirdly flirts with you, because you know it's going to be a happy ending and they know, you know, but then you're like, oh, what are you doing now? Okay, there's a bit of a twist. All right. So it's kind of quite like you get to enjoy how you get there, because you don't know how the writer's going to like do it.
Awesome. And what are you working next?
So yeah, I'm writing book 2 at the moment. So it's set in the same time, in the same world, but different characters. So it follows Eliza, who is the Countess of Somerset. And I know, so she's very fancy. So before the novel begins, Eliza actually does the marriage of convenience. So she marries someone rich, much older than herself, who she doesn't love, to help out her family. And she has quite sort of 10 years of quite an unhappy marriage. But then, fortunately, he dies. Not suspiciously, but fortunately, and leaving her suddenly with a title, rich, and with a level of independence she's never had before. So she sort of sets off to Bath to sort of seize her second chance at a future, and second chance at life, love, and everything. So I haven't quite nailed the elevator pitch for that yet, but it's coming. It's boiling.
I am very excited because I love widow heroines. They're like my favorite type of heroine, because they have the freedom to do so much that, you know, a virgin heroine in Regency probably did not have the freedom to do things that a widow heroine could do, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, you have that. So it is actually, it was the best place to be, best role to be in Regency England for a woman is a rich widow, because you'll have all the benefits of being a married woman with none of the limitations. So I quite fancy being a rich widow, to be honest. But,
I think that's what I want to be. I want to be like you know, independently wealthy, you know.
Exactly. And just sort of waft about flirting with people. Yeah,
just like if I fancy you, yes. If I don't fancy you, fine, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever. Sounds good, you know. But
good for you. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for that book. All right, so Sophie, tell us where we can find you online.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm on Instagram at sophie.irwin. And then I'm also on Twitter at Sophie H. Irwin. And there's also a ladies guide website, which I believe is just www.ladiesguide.co.uk, to sort of follow the series as it goes. Yeah, but mostly Instagram's best for dog pictures, watching me try my best to write a book without falling apart, and all sorts of things like that.
Thank you, Sophie, for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been great fun.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. For a list of books mentioned and other romance recommendations, please visit watchrenextblog.com. Did you know you can purchase audiobooks directly from your favorite local bookstore? With Libra.fm, you can pick up more than 250,000 audiobooks, including bestsellers and recommendations from real booksellers. You'll get the same audiobooks at the same price as the largest audiobook company, you know the name, but you'll be part of a different story, one that supports the local community. If you're new to audiobooks, they're the perfect way to squeeze more reading into your busy life. Listen with the free Libra.fm app while you do your chores, walk the dog, relax at home. If you already love audiobooks and don't know what to listen next, check out recommendations from people who know the best booksellers. The Watch Read Next podcast has a special offer for our listeners. Get two audiobooks on Libra.fm for the price of one with your first month membership. Use code WatchReadNext. The offer is valid only for new members in Canada and the US. The Watch Read Next podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Please visit frolic.media/podcast to discover new shows to tune in. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.